We are rolling. Remember Limp Bizkit rolling? You see John Cena's back in WWE?
Did I see?
What a turn that was. Yeah, you can't miss him. See, just before whatever this is gets started, are we alright? Like, are we pals? We've been pals for a long time. Like, are we still pals?
I suppose we have to be now. We're here.
Ah, true. So we're just going to kind of power ahead with this?
We may as well say hi now. We've gone for it. So
Yeah. Well, we're not really doing much else, are we?
I suppose that's true.
So let's go.
Looks like it.
Well, on that note, hello and welcome back to Talking Lower League. About the latest news in Scottish Lower League football, the League Cup so far as well, the Premier Sports Cup. We're going to be chatting about some of the teams that have stood out for us, some of the teams that have maybe disappointed, some of our league predictions, and for the first time, Ross, for the first time this year, we are going to have punishments as well, and we will also be looking ahead to returning to games in person as well. Obviously some great news with regards to fans coming back. It's already happened, and I've been lucky enough to have already went to a game in the opening weekend of the West of Scotland League, so can't wait to talk about that. So plenty to get through. So Ross, it's lovely to see you.
I wish I could say the same, but...
Oh sorry, I meant to stay in character for the first bit, sorry. It's alright to see you, I guess. Let's just get wired into it. Obviously we have been away for a wee while. We've kissed and made up physically, emotionally, mentally. So let's have a wee chat about some of the kind of things, I guess, in the last few weeks that have maybe kind of dictated Scottish Lower League football. One of those happening this week at the time of recording as well. Dunfermline Football Club, the Kingdom of Pfft, getting some strong, hard-hitting, exciting Germans taking over the place. Obviously with the news that a German consortium that had already bought, I think it was around kind of 30% of the club, have actually bought out I think another significant amount of the club, and they are now the principal owners of Dunfermline. Obviously Dunfermline, even before we took another break, we spoke about Dunfermline and the positives around their collaborations with the likes of, I think it was Alloa as well last season, and obviously it'll be interesting to see if they try and do more of that. They've got a kind of strong group. The statement that they put on the website, actually, if you've not seen it, head over to Dunfermline website or their social media channels. I thought it was really good, really comprehensive, quotes from every kind of major kind of shareholder from the German group as well, which I thought was good, and they've not even had a chance to come over yet to a game, so I imagine that the Pars fans will give them a great reception. For a lower league club, this is quite exciting. Yeah,
definitely. I think that for a long time Dunfermline has been regarded as a sleeping giant of Scottish football, if you will, and it's felt for a long time that, we talked about when we started the podcast last season about Stevie Crawford still there. We felt they had a really good squad on paper that could push for the title. That also didn't materialise. Things have now changed. Peter Grant's come in. Pars fans will have their own opinion about that.
Oh, that's what I was actually.
It's not for us to.
I was going to say. I was going to ask about your opinion on that, because I think a lot of Dunfermline fans. I remember when it got announced, and obviously in our group chat and stuff, we were talking away about it, and I can from my point of view, I can understand the appointment. I get it. I got what he tried to do at Alloa, but many managers before him have actually managed to keep them up as well. He was the one, obviously, that wasn't the case last season. You could see what he was trying to do with the style of play. It wasn't just that, okay, let's keep Alloa in the Championship. It was about, let's try and implement a long-term vision of what this football club should play like and the type of players that they should have. So I can understand with more resources, no offence to Alloa, obviously a bigger club in Dunfermline, I get why they brought him on, but quite a underwhelming reaction to say the least.
I think I can see both sides of it. I agree with what you said. We talked ad nauseum last season about how we felt Peter Grant tried to play football the right way.
Yeah.
Nice attacking football. Did that end up potentially costing them their status in the Championship, perhaps?
Yeah, probably.
So there is a balance to be struck there. But if you're looking at it from the style of play that you had with Alaba, and you then transfer that to the resources that Dunfermline had and now are strengthened even further with, the players they've got already, the players that they've brought in, I think for Peter Grant as well, something that maybe can't be said for a lot of managers in Scottish football, is very honest. Teams aren't playing well, come out and say that.
Yeah.
He does protect his players a lot. That could come back to bite him, because we know that Dunfermline fans rightly, in my opinion, have high expectations of where they should be, especially now that's only going to be intensified with the further resources. But like we said, they're a kind of sleeping giant of Scottish football, and it's good to see it's not just from a perspective of we're going to just put money into the playing squad. It's bringing back the youth academy, it's investing in their staff, investing in more staff, so they're saying all the right things.
And the infrastructure as well, I think that is one of the key things in how lower league Scottish football clubs can be successful in the long term. The short term isn't. We've seen it fail in the past many times. We don't need to tell you guys about Gretna, that's probably a key example. But there's other clubs, even at times our own club, Clyde, who went hell for leather to try and get into the Premiership and ended up spending, Clyde are still trying to work their way back up, do you know what I mean? So investing in infrastructure and youth in a proper kind of 10, 15, 20 year strategy in order to get the next generation as well. It's a big thing for lower league clubs to make sure they have a next generation of supporters. I know Dunfermline I don't think that'll ever be a problem for them, but for other clubs it's worth kind of taking note, and let's hope that it's a positive move for the club and for the fans.
I think so. Dunfermline, I think, are one of the clubs that are blessed from kind of almost not being in the kind of remit, if that's how you put it. Rangers or Celtic or Hibs and Hearts, they're kind of where they're positioned. They have that localised support, a very passionate support, has to be said as well. So for me, and I know we're going to go into predictions later on, I think Dunfermline have got a chance this year. I'll wait until we're going on to our predictions to really go into it, but I think they've got a good chance. That is all very positive just now, and I think they've got to try and capitalise on that good feeling and goodwill whilst it's around, because for all we're saying, it's a good move. It has been made, not with cynicism, but I think with kind of calm caution from Dunfermline fans so far, and understandably so. Look at the amount of clubs across Scottish football being burned by owners, both foreign and from the UK. So I certainly understand their concern, but for me, on paper and in terms of what they've said so far, it's looking good.
It is, and like I say, let's hope that it's a positive thing for the club as well. Obviously, another thing that's I guess in the news, can you even call it that? It's just a thing, isn't it? Is the League Cup campaign, quote unquote glorified friendlies in the eyes of fans of teams that don't qualify. But ultimately, it's been great to see proper competitive football back, and not only that, Ross, with fans in there as well. I mean, we've managed to see some cracking cup games on the telly and stuff, obviously been sponsored by Premier Sports this year, and let's hope with that Premier Sports do invest a little bit more into not just the Premier Sports Cup obviously, but their their showing of Scottish football as a whole as well, because I've watched some of the games over the last couple of weeks, and some of them have been cracking as well. But obviously, from your perspective, nice to see, I guess, proper football back.
I think, I don't want to break the fourth wall or anything like that, but I think a big factor into why we finished as early as we did last season was because the three of us were burned out on watching football on laptops, and the pixel cameras, and we would come back with, again, cautious optimism about watching the Clyde Junard game last week, for it to keep zooming in on Stevie Farrell's head, which was brilliant, very funny, for the first, second, sort of third time, and then it got really boring really quickly. And even just see watching it during the Euros and then kind of coming back into the games coming back, it's just so refreshing. It doesn't matter the numbers, just seeing fans in grounds making noise. It just doesn't feel, I don't want to say completely soulless, but not as soulless, and I think it will continue to feel that way until we get back to full capacity, which hopefully isn't very far in the future at this stage, but definitely I think it's brought a whole other dynamic back to the games.
I think it has, and all you need to do is look at, I mean, obviously, of course, from our perspective, we're going to look at it, not that I could watch the game last night due to the non-existent stream from the East Kilbride point of view, but mind you, they have apologised, so that's fine, it happens. But obviously, seeing some of the photos from the Clyde East Kilbride game last night, a fantastic Clyde support away, in the back end of the goals and stuff like that. It's just great to see, obviously, loads of people we know in the photos and stuff, and it's just brilliant. It feels like normality is slightly returned. And like I say, there's nothing wrong with talking about the honest fact that the three of us felt as if we were completely burned out. We felt as if it probably felt like, even though we had that big gap, it kind of felt like 2 years of like continuous football, and the kind of seasons kind of amalgamated into one. It kind of felt like that. It felt as if we never really got a break, and to be honest, we've not really had a break, obviously, because of the Euros, but we're feeling obviously refreshed. We're speaking to each other again, we're not sending each other crude messages or anything, so obviously that's we'll see how many episodes we get through, to be honest. But ultimately, in all seriousness, I think that it's brilliant to just see the fans back and to have that excitement. And obviously, I know we're going to come on to it as the big kick-off for the league on the 31st. And Ross, I think that there's no better time to get fired into the next section of the show, which is going to be talking about the League Cup, who stood out for us and who has disappointed us.
Yep. See, again, I don't want to go too far into predictions. Still in Albion, I think, have quietly surprised some people. I don't know that I'm that surprised. They've done good business. They have quietly kind of gone about it as well. I have to say their social media output is fantastic as well. I've got to give them big credit for that. But you look at the group they're in, not an easy group. There's Hearts on 9 points, they currently sit in 5, Inverness on 4, and Peterhead and Cove Rangers with 3 apiece. It's, I know what you're saying, that a lot of clubs treat them like still pre-season friendlies, but they're competitive games and like that. Still in Albion, like Clyde, have gone through not a complete squad overhaul, but there's a lot of new faces in. It takes time to get cohesion, so it depends on your outlook, I guess. But for me, I think there's still a lot of pride to be taken from that, because you look at it, for every other club that gets through, and one of the lower league clubs managed to get through, there is a potential good tie for you in there as well. Early in the season, with a bit of money behind you, that still gives you a chance potentially to go into the market to get that extra player that might turn your season around, or give you that kind of push at the end of the season that you need. So for me, still in Albion, I think have quietly gone about it. They've won 1, drawn 1, and lost 1 so far. But in that group, I think Cove Rangers and Peterhead probably almost kind of negate each other. Inverness you'd probably expect to do a little bit more, but again, Billy Dodds is now in as manager. Some strange signings going on there as well. Some strange
signings, and obviously I watched his interview post-match from the Cove game, where they seemed just to be completely blown away by Cove, and that was Cove's first win of the group as well. And you can see how honest he is, that he's not been happy with the last few performances. But like we were talking about in the last part there of the show, about the kind of constant nature of football at the moment, just because of everything that's been going on. That's not going to go away probably until the end of this season, where hopefully we do get, touch wood, we actually do get a proper break. So he's going to have to, squads are going to have to gel really quickly. And obviously more games helps with that, but also at the same time you want more time in the training pitch, and obviously over the last season teams haven't been able to do that. So no, I completely agree. I think that Stirling Albion in particular have been a standout. Is there anybody that's kind of you've looked at and went, what the fuck's going on there?
There's actually a couple. Some people might be surprised with this. I think Alloa could have done more. I think that since we began this podcast, the three of our feelings as Clyde supporters on Barry Ferguson have been made very clear. I think that Barry Ferguson has all the makings and all the talk and the good ideas of a good coach. As a manager, as a man completely in charge, I'm not convinced. We talked about how for all Alloa were relegated last season, they were still playing decent football, so there was a hope that when Barry Ferguson came in on the back of a successful season with Kelly Hearts, he could come in and kind of carry on that trend and played good football but enough to get them results in League One. They sit second bottom of their group just now, only ahead of Brecon on goal difference, with 1 win and 2 losses.
After Brecon getting a wee bit of revenge on Barry Ferguson after what happened with the playoffs as well.
Yeah, that's right. So for me, I don't want to say it's really, really early to start saying alarm bells ringing, but there's a lot to be said. And on the flip side of that, I could go on and talk about Kevin Thompson and the job he's done, taking Barry Ferguson's seat at Kelty, which I will do in a minute. There's a lot to be said about maybe there's just some ex-players who, you see them doing punditry, talk a good game, understand the game well, but that doesn't always translate.
No, it doesn't. I mean, just to jump in there as well, I mean, from my point of view, the team that have probably impressed me the most has been Kelty Hearts. Yeah. We spoke about watching some of the games on Premier Sports. I mean, I remember watching the Kelty Dundee United game. I thought they were so unlucky, not to win that game. Never mind go down 1-0. Do you know what I mean? For me, and we've heard about a lot of positive things about Kevin Thompson over the last few years from his work at Rangers and other places. Speaks really well, comes across really well. I think he is a real deal. I think he could be, and I'll go on to talk about them more in the league preview section of the show, but yeah, I think he's doing brilliantly. Alloa were another one that I was going to bring up about being disappointing. I mean, it's very early, right? Very early, so I might be doing him a disservice, mind you. I don't think I'm going to get invited on Go Radio anytime soon, but we can live with it, right? His signings have been a bit bizarre. It's had a lot of change, and he's very intense when it comes to his managerial style and the demands that he has, which is fair enough, right? He was a fantastic player, but there has to be a balance. It was a problem at Clyde, and you're hoping it's not going to be a problem at Alloa, but there is some similarities there. So it'll be interesting to see that. However, one team I did want to bring up was Dumbarton as well. I've been quite disappointed with Dumbarton. I think it might be a long season for them. I know we'll talk about it. I feel like I'm just doing a constant preview for the next bit the show that we're doing. Stick around for the league bit. But no, I've been quite disappointed with them. I like Stevie Farrell as a manager. I thought he'd done a decent job at Stranraer. There's been a lot of change at that club, a lot of things going on at Dumbarton, which, to be honest, we could spend a whole podcast alone on, which I'm sure we'll get into as the season goes on. But quite disappointed with them, and also I'm a wee bit worried about East Fife, but I don't want to get into that too soon. So it's unbelievable about that though, isn't it?
It's mental. I can't believe that's Indigo Sun over there.
An Indigo, I know. Why do you think I moved here? It's absolutely wild. Anyway, here. Cheers. We've got a bit of we've just actually had a good chat about it. We've got a bit of a question for you. Do you sometimes like to relax and completely shut off in what can often be living in this hellscape of the modern world? Well, we think that we have found a solution. Ross is so emotional right now about finding this solution, but we think we've found it. I know it's okay, we're nearly going to hold hands there. And this is it right here. It's called Perlenbacher Lager.
What can I say about Perlenbacher? It's great for any occasion. Wedding, funeral, bar mitzvah, Christmas, Easter. Kid's birthday you really don't want to have to go to, but it's your friend's son. So you have to. You have to because you're a nice person. We know you are. Anyway, we could talk about this all day, but this podcast is proudly not brought to you officially by Lidl's Perlenbacher Lager. So head off and get them just now. I hate my life.
And we're back, Ross. I mean, this stuff, eh? This stuff. If this doesn't get people excited, I don't know what does.
I'd like to clarify for my family watching, 0% alcohol, so
0%.
I'm not a drink driver.
There we go. We couldn't have a criminal on the podcast.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Let's get back to it. back to football, back to real life football, back to league action. So, obviously, to caveat this, Alistair Sloss is not here. Ali will be back next week, so it'll be the three of us back together again, which will be relatively entertaining. So, we're going to leave his punishment, leave his predictions, and we'll get his either during the week, we'll release them on the social media, or we'll get them next week. But Ross, before we get into things, what we're going to do is, as quickly as we can, obviously, because there's a lot to talk about, we're going to go through the Championship, League 1, League 2 and the SPFL, go with who we think is going to win the league, who we think is going to go down. And then we'll do our best to touch on the West of Scotland League as well, as much as we possibly can, obviously, because there's a lot, like I say, over the course of this season we're going to be covering a lot of West of Scotland League stuff as well, so we'll touch on it this week, because we're going to talk about it obviously, and we'll talk about Pollock and all that towards the end as well. So, but let's kick off. So I guess it's probably a bit, I mean, let's be honest, we're fucking ripping off everything at this rate, but as a lovely gesture, a genuine show of appreciation for the guys from A View from the Terrace, we've kind of taken, or borrowed the punishment thing. So I'm going to start off, right?
Okay.
So I have to decide your punishment. So at the end of the season, if your predictions are all over the place,
which they will be,
right? Which, yeah, but let's be honest, it's against me and Ali, right? Then you have to do this punishment, and I don't know why I'm describing how this game works, right? So my punishment for you, Ross, right? My punishment for you.
This is actually scaring me, because there's a lot of roads you could go down here.
We've not spoken about this, we've not agreed punishments, we've not anything, right? Is at the end of the season, when we know the results, in the first night possible, because we'll be able to do it by then hopefully, we have to go to an open karaoke night in Glasgow city centre, where you will get up and perform the smash hit dance anthem Chicane, featuring Tom Jones, Stoned in Love.
If you could see me here this way, looking backwards from today, would you do it all again? If I could roll it back to you, just like lovers always do. I'm stoned in love, but not really good love. 'Cause when I feel stoned in love, it's how I'm feeling.
And you will drink loads of lager, and we are allowed to film a portion of it for our one individual that's watching this.
Is that a punishment?
To be fair, I was thinking we could go down to the Star Bar now and do that now.
Which is just
If you
Tuesday
wanted.
for me.
Let's just go. No, that's it. That's what your I think that is a pretty decent punishment.
Okay, you know how I feel about karaoke, so okay,
Yep.
I'll take
Yeah,
that.
known you for a long time, so I thought right for the jugular.
I thought you were going to play in my hatred of a former Dundee United and Celtic player, so that's
No, I won't mention him by name.
good.
Okay.
My punishment for yours is not quite as out there. What you are going to do is you, again, meeting all the criteria, you will perform a 10-minute YouTube video of you sat in a situation similar to this, wearing a Partick Thistle top, and you will go through player by player of Partick Thistle squad for the 2021-2022 season, praise every player, talk about their key attributes, how they have contributed to the season that Partick Thistle have, either positively, if they have a good season or a bad season, you'll still talk about them the most positive light you can, and at the end I'd like you to perform a poem for Ian McCall.
Do you know, see when you got halfway through that, and I was like, this is not that bad, right? This is not that, then the fucking poem. But I've not written a poem, not written a poem in a long time.
Good.
I don't know why,
With
it's
no
so weird
assistance.
about writing a poem thing, it's weird.
You know,
That's-
no assistance with this whatsoever.
No assistance whatsoever? No ghostwriter or anything?
No.
Right,
nothing.
okay. Man, that could be interesting. I think the punishments are alright. Let us know what you think, right? If you've actually got to this point. Right, Ross, let's try and fire through it as quickly as we possibly can. The Championship, who's going to be your winner and who's going to be your loser?
The championship for me this season is the hardest because I don't think that there's, for me, a clear outright winner. I'm going to cop it out a bit and say it's going to come down to Hamilton Accies, Kilmarnock and Dunfermline. And purely to live up to their status as Scottish football cockroaches, I'm going to say the Accies are going to win the league.
Right, I was going to say that, you know, I am desperate to see you perform Chicane and Tom Jones, so you have to pick one. You put your neck in the line for all these.
As a Hamilton
I said to you before, this is we're pretending it'll be fun and be friends and have a good time. This is not fun.
I don't like the look in your eyes. I don't know how else to do this.
Sorry, you're saying Hamilton we're going to win.
As a Hamilton resident, I will probably regrettably hang my hat on the Accies. I think they will win the league.
Right, who's going down?
Morton.
Okay, that's good. That was pure cutthroat for Morton. Sorry, a pal Andy watching probably. Kilmarnock to win the league. I think it'll be too strong over the course of the full season. And Morton to go down. But do you know what? And we'll talk about it later on in the podcast. That over the course of the season, could be one of the best things to happen to Morton, and we'll come back to that. League One, Ross, winner and loser.
I take back what I said. I think League One's probably worse because again I don't see an outright winner. Normally I would have hung my hat on Falkirk, but I've learned my lesson over the last 2-3 years. Again, a weird summer, a weird managerial appointment at Falkirk again. I guess Falkirk because I don't see another outright, real competitor.
Okay, your loser?
My loser will be Dumbarton. If we're still in business by then.
True.
Going by news reports over the last couple of weeks.
My winner is Cove Rangers. I think Cove Rangers with a second season. As you say, you were saying about kind of Falkirk. I don't feel as if the top end of League One is as strong as it's been. And I do think that Dumbarton will go down, but I do think that Clyde and East Fife could be in a lot of trouble, depending on how things go. But if it's serious, I have to pick one. I'm going to pick Dumbarton. Okay. We're firing through. This is the most efficient I think we've ever been. League Two. Who's your winner and losers?
League Two. Again, I think there's going to be a 4-way race for the title. I'm down to Stenhousemuir and Kelty Hearts, and we talked about Kevin Thompson there and some of the recruitment at Kelty Hearts, but we, throughout the course of since we launched the podcast, talked a lot about Stephen Swift, what we've seen him as a manager. I think they've done some great recruitment at Stenhousemuir. I think they're a club moving in the right direction in every kind of sense. And
on and off the pitch as well. We spoke about that last season as well, didn't we?
Absolutely. So for me, I think all the signs are there for Steny. I think they could have almost a quiet good season. Mm-hmm. I think they could. I think with a good run they could win the league. Yeah. No, I think that's a decent shout. What about the bottom end? A League Two. I know it's a bit more difficult there. I guess it always is. Obviously, I guess especially Alice Loss isn't here, but Brecken's his default answer. But obviously they're not there anymore. I think Cowdenbeath. I think that Cowdenbeath were saved by the fact that Brecon were in the league last year. I think feeling that Cowdenbeath could have also been in real trouble. Yeah,
Cowdenbeath's such an interesting one. It's so interesting actually that Gary Bowen's still there. I've always rated Gary Bowen as a decent lower league coach and manager, and I'm surprised he's been at Cowdenbeath for as long as he has. But I don't think
he could attack someone verbally or physically.
Well, I mean, we grew up watching Gary Bowen score raspers for Clyde. I mean, if you were hit by one of those free kicks, you were done. Now, let's be honest.
That's why I said what I said.
You were done. And he is quite intimidating. I would love to have you on, Gary. For me, it's the Kevin Thompson loving train rolls on. For me, I think Kelty Hearts will win the league.
Yeah.
I think they'll probably just have too much over Stirling, probably. I do fancy Stenny to be in the playoffs. And at the bottom end, I do think it will be between Cowdenbeath and Albion Rovers. Annan need to have an improvement on what they did last year. Absolutely. Peter Murphy has to get them playing some good stuff. You know, a disappointing recent result in the League Cup, and similar to Billy Dodd's interview that we were talking about, I watched his post match as well, and you could see he was frustrated as well. But for me, I'm going to go Cowdenbeath as well, which I've never in a million years thought I would actually say a Gary Bowen side to go down. But this is why we might be doing karaoke together at this point. We've flown through the SPFL there, Ross. We've got it on camera, I've recorded. The lights that are giving us an incredible tan at the moment are here to witness it as well. We're not going to go through, for the West of Scotland League, we're not going to go through kind of league by league. I think we, you know, to be brutally honest, we need to get really back into the way we were last season in regards to the West of Scotland League, and really, because we're going to be, and there's going to be a lot of different things that we're doing this season at games, different locations, etc. The West of Scotland League for us this season is going to be a massive thing, like it should have been last year, as anybody who's listened to the podcast since the start will know. Really just a couple of teams I want to touch on just before we actually get to the next part of the show, which we'll delve deeper into that. Obviously Pollock and Auchinleck being back playing in the Premier Division this season is fantastic. You know, will it be a straight shootout between them? You would say that, and it's probably a bit of a lazy answer actually, because you'd say that because they are traditionally the biggest clubs, but I could see it, and like I say, we'll talk about in the next part about Pollock in particular. There could be a few surprise packages in there for me as well. I think the likes of Cumbernauld United and Kirky Rob Roy might do a little bit better than did last season. Some relatively, especially for Cumbernauld beating Rossvale in the first week of the season there. Rossvale obviously a bit of a hammer blow, losing friend of the podcast David Gormley to Broomhill, which I think is a good move for Broomhill and Gormley, and let's hope that, you know, Rossvale can bring in another exciting appointment as well. Really good club, and we obviously hope the best for them this season as well. And do you know what, I'm really keeping an eye, 3 clubs in particular, off the back of what we discussed last season. Neilston for me, in the conferences, Neilston, I thought they were a standout last season, despite the interruptions, despite everything that came with the first season of the West of Scotland League, and also the 2 clubs just outside Glasgow by the water, and that's Port Glasgow and Greenock. Obviously that was probably the standout fixture pre-match for the first weekend of the West of Scotland League, which has just passed. I thought both of them were on a real kind of positive trajectory last season as well, and I'm really intrigued to see how they got on as well. I've got a lot of hand movements going at the moment, and see the passion I have for West of Scotland League. Like I say, Ross, obviously we're going to get into it a lot more, but is there kind of any sides that stick out to you?
Yeah, I think we've got to caveat talking about the West of Scotland League by saying I think we were probably quite ambitious last season trying to do 2 shows and covering the West of Scotland League, and I think we probably did ourselves a bit of a disservice.
Right.
I think if you're looking for a show to cover all the games or all the teams in the West of Scotland League, PG and Dak do a great show, friends of the podcast. Great
guys, great show. Yeah, and obviously they are involved in some fantastic clubs and coaches in the league as well. Get some great guests as well. So, a wee shout out to those guys as well who've been great with us as well. Yeah. So definitely.
Yes, clubs that I'm looking forward to. I think last season it probably a little bit unfair considering, we took Auchinleck and Pollock out of the league last year. To write off Clydebank and Troon, they were really going for it at the top of the Premiership. It could be interesting to see how they now do with Auchinleck and Pollock back in the mix. Clydebank in particular on social media really hammering it, really going for it, which is good to see. Great to see them
finally now being back in the senior levels of Scottish football, and having that pathway back up to where a lot of people think they belong ultimately, and the way that club is and the way it's run and the excitement, and a very exciting management team as well still there, and they've tied themselves to the club. I think the only way is up for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like you kind of highlighted Cumbernauld United and Kirkcaldy Rob Roy there. I think it goes without saying they both have to have better seasons than they did last year. Cumbernauld United obviously pretty much a new squad, new management team in. Certainly have a friend, hi Paddy, who will get a real buzz off that. Optimistic. I think certainly a lot of optimism about this Cumbernauld United squad. Do I think they have enough to push right into contending for the title? No, but it would be interesting to see what they can do and give themselves a platform to build on for the coming seasons. I think Rossvale, as you talked about there, I worry. I've got to be honest, I really worry for Rossvale this season. That was before David Gormley left, just because I think there's a lot stronger teams around them.
Yeah.
I think now that David Gormley has gone, I just worry that close to the start of the season it's a bit of a hammer blow.
Yeah, and especially with the likes of, they get a really positive result at the weekend there, Rutherglen, Glencairn, a side that probably were hit the most with the kind of the COVID stuff last year, and it felt so stop-start. The same for the likes of Glasgow Pershing as well, but you feel as if Rutherglen are just going to kind of get a wee bit better moving forwards, and like I say, you have a bit of a worry for the likes of Rossvale, I think.
Yeah, I think for me, just one other team that I'd quite like to highlight is because I put my hands up when we started doing the West of Scotland League show last year. I'm still very much out of the loop when it comes to that kind of level of football. So for me, Ashfield, I think have done some really good business. Yeah. I'm interested to see what they can put together this season. Gartcairn as well started well. Mm-hmm. We kind of hyped them up last season. We thought they were going to do some good things with some of the signings they made. Didn't quite materialise, but I believe they got a good result at the weekend again.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And
so
you need
a lot of excitement.
Doing something they didn't do last season, which was get off to a good start as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's very stop-start, quite a disappointing start for Gartcairn. So interesting to see how they got on. And like I say, like we've said all over our social media channels, like we've said tonight. As well, we're going to be at a lot of West of Scotland League games this season, going around a lot of grounds, hopefully doing some more filming stuff, audio stuff at grounds, speaking to people and having a good time, having a few pints, going to pubs and stuff like that. So yeah, can't wait. And yeah, I cannot wait to go out and get pished and listen to you doing the Tom Jones section of Stoned in Love. And on that point, that's the end of the... No, it's not. It's not the end, is it? We've completely left out a section. Everything was going so well. We should probably have a wee chat about how we're feeling to actually get back to games and about Pollock and stuff.
Nice save.
Right, so that's...
The panic in your face here, I hope that video gets kept
that's
for the end of the season.
I was going to do a wee kind of turn to camera and go, that's not making the cut, I'll make the cut.
I'll make sure it makes the cut.
Yeah, exactly, he's the one with leverage here. And a laptop. Yeah, so just quickly, like I say, I don't want to kind of, focus on it too much, but yeah. I just obviously, I was at the Pollock game on Saturday, managed to get tickets for that. Obviously, for a lot of lower league clubs, the 2,000 capacity limit that's now come in as of Monday just past, because we're in level 0 now, is a big game changer for a lot of clubs. So a lot of clubs that would have to do the ticketing traditionally now don't have to. Away fans getting back to games as well, so obviously that's brilliant. And before we kind of talk about what kind of our plans are for the kind of start of the season, the first weekend of the season, I thought the Pollock game was absolutely brilliant on Saturday. It turned out to be, I thought it was always going to be an interesting game anyway, but Pollock against Blantyre always is. Despite the scoreline as well, which Pollock running out 5-1 winners. It was 1-0 at half time.
Yeah. Did
that flurry, 15-20 minute flurry straight after the and it's in at the second half. And despite the scoreline, I thought Blantyre played some decent stuff. Just couldn't quite. Their goal as well was probably goal of the game as well, typically. But I thought the whole setup, the way that it was managed, even the atmosphere concerned, I think there was only kind of between 2 and 250 fans in there. Cannot wait for the likes of Pollock v Auchinleck down there as well. Granted, a 20-minute walk from our new studio.
Dylan's living room.
But yeah, I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and the kind of handful of times that I've been to see Pollock over the last few years, that's the best I've seen them, and they look well drilled, but they look as if they've got a cutting edge.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that they will I don't think they will flatter to deceive. I do think they will be up there fighting for the West of Scotland League Premier Division title as well. But obviously, before we wrap up for good, this time, you know, it's probably looking like we'll be heading to Broadwood, obviously on the 31st for Clyde, Reid and Barton. You know, I know that obviously the Glasgow branch, you know, are doing a lot to kind of encourage people to come along to the game and bring their partners and their kids and families and running buses and stuff like that, and hats off to those guys as well. And let's hope that, you know, at Broadwood we can even get, you know, over 1,000 on the 31st.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's been difficult. I know when we did this last season, we had this conversation, I was very reluctant at that time due to just everything to do with coronavirus. It wasn't for me. I think now, as we see, we got to that stage where we're so burnt out, watching football on laptops, having no one there, all of these things. I think now, because I've not been able to go to a game yet, you're seeing pictures now of people being at games, you're hearing from other people, you know, it's really safe, you know, but you're still able to kind of see people, you're able to see your friends. I think
go for a pint and all that, and
exactly,
mention that.
Exactly. It's the whole, we've spent so long, ironically, in lockdown and in isolation, but we've been able to talk to each other. This is why we're doing this in this format now and not on Zoom. It's because it just, you lose that real feeling of interaction is not the way of putting it, but sitting face to face with someone is completely different to sitting and talking to someone.
We lost.
Yeah.
I think in hindsight, and we've spoke about this, you know, we're happy to talk about it. Like, you know, we spoke about it in the sense that I think we've done the right thing in keeping it going.
Yeah.
Because it did keep us busy and things like that, but doing it over Zoom, not seeing each other, it felt more like a chore. It felt exhausting. Yeah. We weren't connected with it at all. Whereas, you know, all jokes aside, the excitement that we had for tonight, you know, we're putting a lot of effort into it this season. We want to work with a lot of people, get to games, go to different pubs, just get back to the reason why we started doing this podcast in the first place. And I think that the game on all the games that will be happening on the 31st, I think that will be the case for a lot of people, to be honest.
Definitely. Please keep that. Yeah, so I think there when you're talking about the 31st of July, obviously Clyde playing their Barton at Broadwood, you know, it's going to be really good to get back seeing a lot of people we haven't been able to see like that. We've had conversations over Twitter, you know, just messaging each other, but there's no feeling quite like when you're at a football ground getting to talk to people, because like that, you talk to people about the game, people you might not normally have a conversation with, you know, day to day. As well, I know a lot of clubs will have lost supporters unfortunately over the last year and a bit. I feel like Clyde specifically have lost a couple of young people that we knew, people that we're friendly with. So it'd be really good to be able to have that kind of celebration almost as well. I know that Clyde are now working with the Terrace brand who are putting a black ship, a black ship in the sleeves of the shirts this season to commemorate the number of supporters.
Yeah, it looks really good, yeah.
Yeah, so I think definitely, I think it'll be emotional for everybody that's a football fan.
Yeah.
You know, and that's going to sound a bit cringy or whatever, but it's a big thing.
It is a big thing.
It's such a big thing in people's lives, football, and I think it's actually underestimated how much of an impact it can have for people.
It is. I mean, we spoke about it, and I even remember when I spoke to Gary Robertson and BBC Scotland about it, and the one thing I wanted to make sure in that couple of minutes I was speaking to him was that kind of the community aspect as well as the mental health aspect, but the community aspect there as well. And like I say, being in the pub before the game, after the game, talking about it, I think that when the teams come out on the 31st, I think it will be emotional for all of us. And in particular, obviously, like you say, we've known a couple of people that unfortunately aren't with us anymore. As well, that we've got to know really well through, in particular, going to Clyde games as well. So I think it will just hopefully be a day of celebration, and selfishly a day of 3 points for us.
Yeah, I almost feel like, and it's not going to be the case, but I feel like it's almost the football's going to be like the sideshow.
Yeah.
Almost, it's the occasion. It's what I've been calling in our Instagram page the hashtag the return.
The return.
It's the whole occasion. It's the getting back. It's seeing people. It's seeing the football live, your own two eyes, and
Yeah.
magical technicolor and all these things. It's,
No, do you know what? I think it'll be absolutely brilliant, and you know, it's things like that get us excited to be back doing things like this
yes,
as well,
absolutely.
which is great. And keep an eye out for the smash hit film The Return, coming to Amazon Prime, starring Ross Gray and Liam Neeson, because he seems to be doing fucking every film under the sun. Ross, it's been a genuine pleasure being able to sit down and do this. And we're talking again, and we're pals, and everything like that. We'll see how long that lasts. But no, in all seriousness, it's been great. It's so good to be able to do it in person again. And first and foremost, we hope you guys like this as well. We are going to be trying a lot of different. That's going to be brutally honest. We're going to try a lot of things that don't work this season. We're going to try some things that do work. Let us know. We did feel that it was getting repetitive. We did feel it was getting. We felt as if we kind of lost our personalities along the way. We were tired, and we want to kind of get to know everybody and kind of show people exactly what we're about. And this is just one of the ways we're going to do that. So let us know all your feedback as well. And before I sign off with another swig of incredibly cheap Prosecco, is I would like to give a wee shout out to our good friend Nicholas Boyle.
Yes.
As well, for the glorious tunes that you'll be hearing and you've heard throughout this episode and throughout this season. Nick often does beautiful jungle house songs about things like the back bins, about things like towns like Cumbernauld, about Denniston, about anything at all. If you head over to Twitter, obviously you'll see the information about Nick if you want to follow his account and read about how much he was upset by the demise of the failed game Cyberpunk. So yeah, thank you very much, Nick, as ever, obviously one of our good friends. And thank you very much to everybody for listening to the first episode of hashtag the return of Talking Lower League. I've never really let you forget that. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I've missed saying this. We'll speak to you all next week.